Peace and blessings, everyone. This is Asar Imhotep again with the technical difficulties. For some reason, the app crashed on the first go round of this presentation, and it is the second go round for part 2 of an analysis of Dr. Mario Beatty's presentation from the ASCAC Conference. So we're just going to basically start the program over again. And so I will skip the long intro. Just know that, we're doing a series of 3 responses to Dr. Mario Beatty's presentation from the 2019 ASCAC Conference that was held in New York City from April 18th to the 21st. And so since his presentation was 28 minutes, we're breaking them up. We're dividing his presentation into 3 segments, 10 minutes, 10 minutes, and 8 minutes. And we're just going to play his commentary, then we're going to respond to it. So, and in true fashion, when I clicked on the broadcast, the large video that I see in the background before the thing started, it agreed, but now it's going back to no. So there's something wrong here. There's something wrong with the app. And so everyone's just going to have to deal with the avatars at the bottom because it is not acting right on this end here. So I do apologize for that. So hopefully if there's any text at the bottom, you'll still be able to kind of concentrate and see what it is. So, but anyway, so for those who are catching us live, again, thank you for joining us. And for those who are catching the archives, thank you for joining us. If you couldn't catch us live. So on the panel, we have again, Brother Wudjau Iry-Maat, and he was scheduled to present, but he was unable to make it. But we created a text of an expansion of our presentations from the ASCAC conference. And so as you can see on your screen, the title of the text is A Contribution to the Debate on the Meaning of the Place Name Kemet. And collectively, Wudjau, Brother Sonjedi-Ankh-Ra, and myself, Asar Imhotep, we are the Shemsu Heru research team. And so we put together this text to, again, expand our presentations from the ASCAC conference, but also to give you some insights on what's to come for a larger text, which we're going to be addressing the meaning of the place name Kemet. So without further ado, I'm not going to prolong this intro. We're going to actually kind of go back a little bit and address this issue of Coptic that was brought up by Dr. Mario Beatty in his presentation. So I'm going to let Wudjau, have the floor, and whenever you're ready.
Okay, so again, peace to the family, ET Imhotep. And yes, this is your brother Wudjau, and we're just going to jump straight into it. All right. So let me get my screen back here. Just before, again, because, we had technical difficulties before, let me just let everyone know, Asar already mentioned the text that's published, but it's available on Amazon, and you just have to search for the title, and you can find it on Amazon. And at the top, we have a few people who have already received their copies. Excuse me. We have Brother Chavis, Brother Sean, Sister Monica, and Brother Kufu, who's not pictured, but he has his book in the passenger seat, traveling with it. But make sure you pick it up, because a lot of things that we talked about last week and the things we're going to mention tonight, we've already published. So a lot of this information was already anticipated and we've already addressed everything. So this is a afterthought, you know, with what we're doing. All right, so what we're going to do is go backwards, and I'm going to replay the clip that I played. And so we're going back to the statements that Dr. Mario Beatty made about Coptic. Last week I played the same clip, but we addressed the decipherment issue that he brought up. This week we're going to talk about something else. So I'm going to play the clip, bear with it and listen in, and then we're going to give our commentary. So let me switch over to the clip. And so here we go.
People from Western Asia in the first intermediate period. Next slide. So, how do we know? So, you know, Asar, you know, gave some examples of my work, and I'm going to give some examples of your work. How do we know that Asar Imhotep means Osiris who comes in peace? How is it that we know that? We know that through a process of historical evolution within the Kemetic language, where Asar is Usire in Coptic. E, which is to come, continues all the way to Coptic. Hotep is a word that continues from the beginning all the way to Coptic. Asar's method, unfortunately, is not a historical comparative method, it's an ahistorical comparative method. It's ahistorical in the sense that what Asar does is that he wants to bypass the historical evolution of the Egyptian language that ends in Coptic. And so because he does not feel that Coptic is a part of the Egyptian language, he feels that it's a separate language. So what Asar does in his comparative method is that he goes into other areas and he doesn't go through Coptic, he goes around it. And that's where Obenga's method is the correct method. And the correct method is actually a free translation. Tep Heseb means atop the county. How do we know that? Through Coptic. So, as a result, every time you bypass Coptic, you are implicitly saying that Medu Neter has not been deciphered. In your method. Because when you make translations of any text, ask yourself, how is it that we get Khenu means residence? How do we get to that? Are we guessing? Or is there a long historical evolution that ends in Coptic? And so this is what's at stake. So I'm giving this example up here from Jaroslav Cherny's Coptic Etymological Dictionary. This is the English version. I'll come to Ogden Golay's article in a minute, but Ogden, in his piece, he gives the French version of Werner Vici-Schell, Dictionnaire étymologique de la langue copte. But in both languages, when you see, I don't have my clicker up here, but when you see Kemom become black, Kame, black, and you see it in Demotic there, and then it has Kemet, black land, Egypt. That means, and then of course, in.
Okay, so I paused it there. And again, I played this clip last week, but we addressed the decipherment statement within this clip last week. So this time we're addressing the overall logic of what he's saying. So just want to demonstrate what the logic is and what he's saying. So bear with me, get my cursor over here. All right. So now, so this is what what you're seeing on the left-hand side here is the the dictionary page that he had on the screen as an example. All right. And I forgive me if it's small to you all, but it's page 58 of Cherny's Coptic etymological dictionary. All right. The same one that he had on the screen during his presentation. And so his overall logic is he raises the question. He says, how do we know that Asar Imhotep means Osiris comes in peace? And then he's basically saying that we know that through a process of evolution within the Kemetic language, where Asar is Usere in Coptic, E is to come and continues into Coptic, and Hotep is a word that continues from the beginning all the way into Coptic. So his whole point is that there's an internal evolution within the language that ends in Coptic. Okay, so there's a historical evolution of the language that ends in Coptic. All right. Now, what I want to bring attention to is this is what he read on the screen. He said we have kamam, which means become black. That's a verb. And again, forgive me if you can't see this clear. Then next we have kame, which is the adjective that means black, as you see here. Then we have the word kime, which is black, defined as black land, Egypt. So we have kime as the one for Egypt. We have kame, the adjective black, and then we have kamam, the verb to be black or become black. All right. Now, this is an etymological Coptic dictionary. And what I'm showing here on this particular page is Crumb's Coptic dictionary. This is the full-blown Coptic dictionary. All right. And it was done in 1939. And it's by Crumb. So on here is page 109 and page 110, where you find the entries for kamam here. And again, I'm sure this is probably small, but this is available online as well. You have kamam here, and it's saying the same thing, to be or become black. And then we have kime, which is the one for Egypt, the country, the kingdom of Egypt, and it's defined as the black land. Notice the entry says the black land or Egypt. And I skip one. We have kamam here, the verb to be black. Down here we have kame, which is the adjective black. And then over here we have kime, which is the one that means the black land, or talking about Egypt as a place. So they're lining up together with each other, these dictionaries. Now, here's the question. So Dr. Mario Beatty is saying that we know the meanings via Coptic, which is the historical evolutionary end of the language. And he says that we must use Coptic to ascertain meanings, and to go around it and use other related languages through the method of comparative linguistics is ahistorical and an incorrect method. And he's charging Asar Imhotep as doing that. But what needs to be pointed out is that there's no Coptic dictionary, or any Egyptian dictionary for that matter, that defines Kemet as black people. So I'm gonna go back here. You will not find a definition at all on this page where it says black people for any of these words, kamam, kame, or kime. Neither in Crumb's dictionary, kamam, kame, or kime, the verb, the adjective, or the place name. None of those says black people as a definition. Okay, and you won't find that in any Egyptian dictionary. So that brings us to his logic. All right. Dr. Mario Beatty defines Kemet as black people. So the question becomes, how did he ascertain, or how did he come to that conclusion of black people, when according to his logic and suggestion and advice that we should use Coptic because Coptic is the historical evolutionary end of the language, but yet there is no Coptic dictionary that will define this word Kemet as black people? So the question is Dr. Dr. Mario Beatty abandoning his own advice and doing something extra outside of Coptic to come away with the conclusion that it means black people? Because that's not what the dictionary said. Okay, so the question is how and by what method did Dr. Mario Beatty arrive at that conclusion that Kemet means black people when his own logic and the use of the Coptic dictionaries does not say that it means black people? Okay, so I want to point that out. So, and I hope people get that point of the logic. And sorry, so I'll leave you at it.
Yeah, I mean, I just reiterate that you can't charge somebody with a methodological flaw and then commit the methodological flaw, alleged methodological flaw yourself. So again, for the people who are listening, there is not one, and I mean not one, not even half of one, not even accidentally sketched in the margins, any Coptic dictionary and or Egyptian or New Kingdom dictionary that defines the word Kemet meaning black people. So in order for you to come to that conclusion, you have to go outside of Coptic, because you couldn't have gotten it through the dictionaries or any primary text. And so remember that this is a dictionary and it's attached to some other primary text. So in what primary text that you can read in Coptic that and you can read the sentence line for line where it has Kemet as being defined as black people? It doesn't exist. So we're baffled and confused at the logic and the purpose for even making that statement. But as I noted last week, the problem with Dr. Beatty is that he's trying to have 2 or 3 different debates at the same time. And because he's trying to have these different conversations at the same time, he's confused on the matters. And so, what he's trying to address is this notion that from Jean-Claude Mboli in his 2010 text, I'll just translate from French, and that is The Origin of African Languages. Let me see the full title. The Origin of African Languages, Essays of the Application on the Comparative Method for Ancient African Languages, Ancient and Modern African Languages. So essays on the application of the comparative method to ancient and modern African languages. And so in this particular text, matter of fact, let me just put my camera on so y'all can, no, because I'll just keep it at this. I was going to just show you the cover, but just so if y'all wanted to purchase it, y'all know what it looks like off the bat. But he comes to a conclusion that Coptic and Middle Egyptian are 2 separate languages, and that the Coptic language is like the evolution from Demotic and New Kingdom, which is itself a separate language that utilizes, well, at least the New Kingdom utilizes the same script as the Middle Kingdom language, but it's in fact different. And so that's a long process to discuss and demonstrate, but we'll have a kind of a clue as of right now. So that's one aspect of it. And so then he, again, not understanding my method and why I use, for example, primarily Middle Egyptian, like Bantu languages, Sumerian and Collagen, for example. And I don't do this haphazardly. There's a reason and a logic, but because he's not trained in historical comparative linguistics, he doesn't understand or know these methods and for what reason and under what situations that we use it. So to address his Coptic commentary, I just want to share a few slides. So, hopefully I explained this well enough that y'all kind of get it the first time. So last week I put up this slide to demonstrate something here that we know as an axiom in linguistics. So this is from Dr. Alan R. Bumhard, who's a linguist of Indo-European and Estradic. And he had written a text of the importance of Hittite and the other Anatolian daughter languages for the reconstruction of the Proto-Indo-European phonological system. So he starts off his commentary on page 2, in which I have highlighted in red here. He says, one of the most important axioms of the comparative method is that the oldest attested and highest quality data should play a pivotal role in the reconstruction of proto-languages. In the case of Indo-European, the oldest attested data come from the Anatolian branch. The consensus now being that this branch was the first to split off from the rest of the Indo-European speech community. So in the overall scope of examining daughter languages of Proto-Indo-European, did you hear an echo?
No, I can still hear you.
Oh, okay. I thought I heard an echo of me. I'm sorry. So dealing with the daughter languages of Indo-European, the one that should play the most pivotal role is the one that we can demonstrate has the oldest and highest quality data, because that's going to be closer to Proto-Indo-European than the newer branches, which have gone through more phonological and grammatical evolutions. And that is moving further and further away from the form and function of Proto-Indo-European. So for the Proto-Indo-Europeanists, that data, is found in the Anatolian languages, such as Hittite. So, but, this goes even within languages and stages of a single language. So let's assume that the standard perception of the languages is correct, of ancient Egyptian. And that is, you have the Old Kingdom, Middle Kingdom, New Kingdom, Demotic, and then Coptic languages, all in a linear sequence. The oldest, of course, is the Old Kingdom, and which next would become the Middle Kingdom. This exists, of course, before Coptic, the appearance of Coptic. And even within Coptic, you have dialects of Coptic that are attested later and or come into prominence a lot later than the first attestations of Coptic itself. So you have a timeline even within the appearance and uses of Coptic. So a lot of these forms in, for example, Bohairic doesn't really come into being until, centuries 300 to 1400, in between that time period, AD. And so this is way, way far removed from the forms that you're going to find in the Old and Middle Kingdom. And so we consider the Middle Kingdom language the most classic of all of the forms that are attested in the ancient Egyptian writings. So with that said, I'm going to inform you on some more information that a linguist has to keep in the back of his or her head when doing comparative work. And so this is from a text, The Rise and Fall of Languages, by Dr. R.M.W. Dixon, who specializes in languages in Australia, the indigenous languages of Australia. So he informs us on page 41 that languages can be roughly classed into three types: isolating, where each meaning element makes up a distinct word, for example, Vietnamese and Chinese; agglutinative, where a word is likely to contain several meaning elements or morphemes, but these are clearly separable. For example, Turkish and Swahili. And we know Swahili is a Bantu language, so keep that in mind. And fusional, where a word will contain several meaning elements, some of them being fused together, so that a single vowel may simultaneously mark, say, tense, voice, and person and number of subject. For example, the languages of Latin and Sanskrit. Proof of genetic relationship rests heavily on grammatical elements, including affixes. The ideal situation is to have a proto-language that is agglutinative, and modern languages that vary from agglutinative to fusional. If a group of modern languages are basically isolating with few grammatical affixes, it may never be possible to prove a genetic connection with the same degree of confidence as for an agglutinative group. So an agglutinative group provides us the best and most high quality information when doing comparative analysis. And ideally, that's why he says the ideal situation. Doesn't mean that this always happens, but if the opportunity presents itself, this is the most ideal situation when doing comparative linguistic work. And that is that the language that is being reconstructed is in fact an agglutinative language. And this becomes important because as we note, Theophile Obenga's Negro Egyptian was reconstructed by Jean-Claude Mboli. And the Negro Egyptian language family for which the ancient Egyptian belongs was reconstructed and found to be an agglutinative language. And not only that, that the Bantu languages, which are agglutinative in form and function, is more closer to Negro Egyptian, the proto-language, than most of the other branches, including the ancient Egyptian. Now, we will continue here. So this is a text called Egyptian Phonology. And hold on one sec. And Brother Wudjau, quick question.
Yes.
Because I can't see the chat and stuff to this nature. Is my screen focused on, and I should have asked this earlier, on my slideshows?
Yeah, it's fine.
Okay. So, all right, I appreciate it. Okay, so now continuing. This text is Egyptian Phonology, an introduction to the phonology of a dead language by Karsten Pust. 1999 is the publishing date. And so he goes through a description of all of the written forms, attested in ancient Egypt concerning the different languages. And so, or scripts or whatnot. And so I cite this commentary here from page 25 of this text. He says, I have only discussed here the different representations of small linguistic elements, phonemes, graphemes, in spoken and written Egyptian, respectively. Now, when he says spoken and written Egyptian, the spoken Egyptian, he is referring to Coptic. So, and then the written forms is what you find in Middle Kingdom and in New Kingdom, but primarily Middle Kingdom. So Frank Camazel makes it clear that spoken Egyptian and written Egyptian can actually be considered two distinct linguistic systems, since they show marked differences on all levels of linguistic description, including morphology, syntax, and pragmatics. So they're saying that what you find in Middle Egyptian is a totally different structure than what you find in Coptic, that there's great differences on all levels of description, of linguistic description in the areas especially. And so especially in this area of morphology, which is going to be very important. So it is a striking fact that spoken Egyptian, Coptic, was a highly inflectional language, whereas written Egyptian can be described as a basically agglutinative system. So remember from the previous slide, we know that an agglutinative system is something like what we find in Swahili, in that it is where a word is likely to contain several meaning elements, but these are clearly separable. Whereas a fusional is where a word will contain several meaning elements, some of them being fused together so that a single vowel may simultaneously mark, say, tense, voice, person, and number of subject. So Middle Egyptian, agglutinative. Coptic, inflectional. And now the next slide, this is just from Wikipedia. So when you see fusional language, know that fusional languages and inflected languages are two words for the same thing. They're the same. So, you know, you could just type up anything and it'll let you know this. So fusional, type in any search engine and it will inform you of this. So this is just from standard Wikipedia. And of course it has sources. So fusional languages or inflected languages are a type of synthetic language, because you have isolating and then you have synthetic languages. And so fusional languages or inflected languages and agglutinative languages fall under synthetic languages. Distinguished from agglutinative languages by their tendency to use a single inflectional morpheme to denote multiple grammatical, syntactic, or semantic features. So the way that Coptic constructs its words is totally different than how Middle Egyptian constructs its words. So this is just a screenshot, you know, to kind of give you a visual of the differences between the two. So if we assume, for example, that this A, B, and C are morphemes with meaning elements, because it couldn't be a morpheme without a meaning, that when you put them all together to create a word, they're still recognized as separate morphemes. So that's why in this square representing the word in total, the individual squares represents the individual morphemes or meaning elements that are clearly separable in the purely agglutinative language. And in a fusional language, each of these elements would merge as a single. You couldn't distinguish any meaningful parts in the words. And so no language to our knowledge is purely agglutinative and purely fusional. You kind of get a mix to where, like in this instance here, you would have A and B that fuse together with one agglutinative morpheme. You know, so that's kind of a lot of the languages in the world. But these are the extremes here. So if those visuals can, you know, help you, you know, we'll move forward. And so this is just a quick excerpt from my upcoming book on this subject. And so I say, we have here the best situation, because remember, I already mentioned in terms of Chiana Intu or Negro Egyptian, that it being a agglutinative language. We are able to compare two related agglutinative languages. Middle Egyptian, and Bantu at vastly different time spans. If we find, for example, a term in Middle Egyptian that we also find in modern Bantu with the same form and meaning, and accident has been ruled out due to demonstrating recurrent sound meaning correspondences between the two languages, then we have a better opportunity at gaining insight into the word's etymology, because we can analyze its component parts better due to its agglutinative property, if two or more syllables, for example. So, you know, these are the steps in the comparative method. And so, you know, I'm not concerned with reconstructing whole language families, but I use most of this, many of the steps when I'm doing the etymologies and trying to get insight into particular words. And so the first step, of course, is to assemble the potential cognates, then establish the sound correspondences, then reconstruct the proto-sounds, then determine the status of similar, partially overlapping correspondence sets. So you do several correspondence sets and compare those sets. So then we check the plausibility of the reconstructed sound from the perspective of the overall phonological inventory of the proto-language. Then we check the plausibility of the reconstructed sound from the perspective of linguistic universals and typological expectations. And so you have to check your reconstructions against what we know of living languages. So this idea, for example, that Netanyahu has, that you don't compare reconstructions, is false. You have to check your reconstructions against living languages to see if it conforms to linguistic universals and typological expectations. And then we go and reconstruct the individual morphemes for the overall proto-language. So I hope I laid a good foundation here to demonstrate why I use Middle Egyptian. Because as we saw, they have two, Coptic and Middle Egyptian, for example, has vastly different word construction processes. And Middle Egyptian is itself agglutinative. See, I'm hearing an echo in my ear. And so what you're seeing here is a test that I'm doing. And so for Proto-Bantu, these are the reconstructions, or some reconstructions for Proto-Bantu. Now, we can test the validity of the reconstructions by comparing these to older forms, especially since Proto-Bantu is believed to be a sub-branch of a sub-branch in quote-unquote Niger-Congo, which is a non-scientific language classification, but that's neither here nor there. So we can validate that the Proto-Bantu language had indeed had these forms if we could consistently find them in allegedly older languages. So by all accounts, by most linguists, Sumerian and Egyptian, Middle Egyptian, is older than Proto-Bantu, allegedly. So if we consistently see these reconstructed forms corresponding with Sumerian, for example, and Egyptian, then we know these forms go back to a much earlier form. So what is telling us temporarily here, what is providing evidence here is that Proto-Bantu, Sumerian, and Egyptian belong to the same language family. And we can, of course, we would have to do more correspondences and grammatical correspondences, more lexical, basic vocabulary correspondences and grammatical correspondences, which we have done to further demonstrate this fact. But this is just for the, listening audience to see. So we know in Proto-Bantu, this voice bilabial B in the first consonant position of these roots. So as you can see from all of these are our base, our domain. And then these are our range over here in these corresponding sets. And so in the second consonant position, we have D, right? So everywhere in Proto-Bantu B, you see a B. You see in Sumerian B. Wherever you see D, which also interchanges with L in Proto-Bantu, you see in Sumerian R or L consistently. And then in Egyptian, you see B and R. So side of the body, rib, side, outside, other side, also back, shoulder, liver. Chikam, buru, outside. And then in the New Kingdom, this N and R combination makes an L. Outside. And so Bada, open place. And, these correspond here. Bada, color, speck. Bada, a color turn. Bur, pigment, a pellet of pigment. Bid, boil, be cooked. Bala, to boil, meat in water. Bur, to boil over. Bod, count. Bur, a unit of an area, a unit of volume. Buri, measure of length for a rope, all having to deal with some kind of measurement, counting. And so in Proto-Bantu, this form is missing, but in Sumerian, bar, a fish, bur, a mullet, a type of fish. And so we can see that these forms correspond consistently in all of these areas here. And so this marks the correspondence. So even if you don't know the exact here, we know for a fact that the R grapheme in Egyptian represents a liquid sound. And that this B corresponds here with the B. So it's a voice labial, bilabial. And so when we look at other terms in Proto-Bantu and Sumerian, we see the same type of correspondences consistently, which you could not do with Dogon, for example. You would not be able to take these same words and find them in Dogon like this. And here's another one. And so we show that even if there's a mix. So in Proto-Bantu, MN, stone, bal, a type of stone. Chikam, benwit, hard stone. Quern. Mui, shine, splendor. Bur, shine, glow, light. Ben, to shine. And so when you're seeing these individual sounds that I have separated here by dots, these are those agglutinative morphemes we were talking about. And so this mui, when you see in Proto-Bantu a consonant and two vowels, in between, because Bantu is consonant vowel structure. They lost a consonant here. But how can we prove that? Because Sumerian and Egyptian inform us that this consonant was lost. Same thing if we go all the way down here to the bottom for the word for do, may. So it lost just a whole syllable, but it's recovered over here in Egyptian. And so look at this form here, min, bend, and then bala, turn, to rotate, turn over, cross. And then, as you can see here, B, the voice bilabial plosive, and the voiceless bilabial plosive are consistently corresponding to the M sound in Proto-Bantu and B in Sumerian. But we go back to this one over here. We see twist. We see it has two. This may be a partial reduplication here, but it also has a suffix here. It's that same suffix over here in pin and S to pull out hair, to cut off. So we know this is a verbal suffix. And so, you know, when someone is saying that Sumerian is that, you know, isn't related to Egyptian, because nobody has actually done the work to demonstrate it. But I have in the upcoming book. And so I compare consistently Bantu, the living Bantu languages, the proto-language, Sumerian, Chicam, and I also do collagen. And so when I come up with the formula again for Kemet, meaning damp ground, irrigable land, you know, and I use Sumerian, is because I have a long list of correspondences that inform me that I can use Sumerian using the historical comparative method that no one can deny. And so, lastly, I want to demonstrate further this characteristic of the agglutinativeness of the ancient Egyptian language, and something that I discovered independent of E. Wallace Budd. So this is from his first dictionary, and the page number is here. And so this is a section where he's discussing certain researchers who made the argument at this time that the Semitic languages, that Egyptian was a Semitic language. And so Budge is saying, based on his analysis of Egyptian, that that is not the case. And so I'll just start at a reasonable spot. He says, like Brooks, he thinks that it separated itself from its sister tongues thousands of years ago, talking about Egyptian leaving Proto-Semitic, and went its own way. According to him, the Egyptian language developed more quickly than the languages of the other Semites, which was due partly to the mixing of the people caused by the invasion of the Nile Valley by Semites, and the rapidity with which the Egyptian civilization reached its zenith, much in the same way as English has gone far away from the other Germanic languages. Wright thought that the connection between the Semitic and the Egyptian languages was closer than that which can be said to exist between the Semitic and the Indo-European. But he called attention to the fact that the majority of Egyptian roots are monosyllabic in form, and that they do not exhibit Semitic triliterality. He was prepared to admit that the not a few structural affinities might perhaps be thought sufficient to justify those linguists who hold that Egyptian is a relic of the earliest age of Semiticism, and then it continues on the next page. But I just wanted to highlight here this notion that Egyptian is monosyllabic in terms of its character. And so this is where that information of the agglutination is very important. So as an example that I give in the upcoming book, this is just a small example of the building process of words in the ancient Egyptian language. And so we have a root here that I have. So each row represents a different word. Okay, and so don't look at them as columns, look at them as rows. So we take the first row, we have the word dejet or jet. This is a root here, j, with a suffix t. This is a body part suffix. So just like there's a feminine t and an abstract t and a collective t, there's also a t of body parts in the language. And so this is body, self, this word here. And then this word is the it's not the same body body part T suffix. This is a totally different T suffix, which is the abstract. And so we come from the notion of the body or self to the concept of a serf, a worker, a human worker. And then we can see over here the same root is agglutinated by different morphemes, and now it becomes the word for people. So we have here this, and it may have merged in this one in terms of the T collective and the quote unquote feminine, but you have the plural marker here. You have the prefix of agent here and another prefix of agent here. And so this becomes the word for people, but these are different morphemes. This is one morpheme, two morpheme, three morpheme, four morpheme, five morpheme that are agglutinated together, that are clearly separable when we see the other forms. So it's the same thing with this word regi, to give, to set, to place. This R is a prefix, meaning towards. And so it is a different form of the same word with a different set of suffixes, meaning to extend the arm, to turn, to oppose. And so we have this from this verb form here, we have this nominalizing suffix T, the abstract. So now this concept of to give becomes a noun gift. And then we have another set of agglutinative morphemes here. 5 again additional. Now it's a word for offerings. So you see how the word buildup is in Middle Egyptian. We do the same thing here, to burn, to roast. This is a prefix. Now the prefix is dropped. We have this nasalized vular trill suffix. So now this verb to burn, to roast becomes a noun, fire drill. When we see this word here, the jet flood, when we drop the T and add the W prefix, it's a body of water. When we add some more suffixes to this root, it becomes a word for flood. And we see this other variation here with a different suffix, and it's a word for canal. So this form here for cattle. Then we have the agent prefix here, goats, is becomes specific. Then we get this form here, cattle herd. But you see, in each form, a new agglutinative morpheme comes into play. This is very important. This is why you compare Middle Egyptian, which is an agglutinative language, to another agglutinative language. So what did we say at the beginning that Coptic was? It was inflectional. So you won't get this type of insight looking at Coptic. And so Coptic, when it comes to the older forms like Old Kingdom and Middle Kingdom Egyptian, is not the best and highest quality forms. This is why we look at these forms here, and why I use Sumerian and Bantu, because they are also agglutinative languages. And so if I look at these roots in Bantu and Sumerian and in Egyptian, it has a particular morpheme, agglutinative morpheme, and it also exists in, for example, Sumerian, as we did here with Kiduru, damp ground, irrigable land, and Kemet, damp, which I define as damp ground, irrigable land. We know that these are matched. And so, there's a whole analysis that demonstrates that Sumerian Ki corresponds to Egyptian suffix T. These are both short forms meaning land. And so I can end there and we can move on to the next topic.
Okay.
You
All
still
right.
there, Wudjau?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd love to get rid of that echo. All right. So now because you said a huge mouthful there, and so just quickly, so two things from that Coptic segment. One, the actual overall logic that Dr. Beatty had shown or given us, he actually goes against his own logic, being that there's no Coptic dictionary or no Egyptian dictionary that defines the place name Kemet as Black people, but yet that is something that he agrees with in meaning. So the question becomes, where does he get that from? And what method did he use? It has to be a method outside the method that he says is the Tep Hesep or the correct method, while charging Asar with doing an ahistorical method through the historical comparative linguistic method. All right, so that's been established, and then so Asar, what you basically said, just to kind of sum it up, is demonstrating the reasons why it's important to step outside of that, to do all of the necessary work and comparisons in order to verify and to falsify and to get rid of chances and so on and so forth. And these are the reasons why and what's all involved. So that's something that if you're not a linguist who actually does I should say historical comparative linguist, because there's multiple types of linguists, and under linguistics we have different disciplines. So if you're not a historical comparatist or historical comparative linguist, then these are things that you may not be competent in, or may not even know that exist and should exist, and tools that are available. So this is something that everyone should take some time out to at least peruse and get a basic understanding of, at least before they start opening their mouths and charging people and accusing people of not using correct methods and so on. All right. So, all right. So now with that, let's continue forward through the video here. And let me get my screen back on the video. Okay, so I'm going to play a bit where Dr. Beatty speaks about, well, I'll just let him speak for himself. So let's just play.
The question is, how do we get to this? That is, that Kim as a root has a long evolution inside the Kemetic language. Next. Brother Reggie gave a text from the pyramid text, and this text is actually from the text of the pyramid of Pepi I. And the line is here. His transcription is in the second line there. Aha ek Km.t Kemet happy, and then east. Next line. This is James Allen's translation of this. You shall stand at the four of the dual flagpole shrines as men. You shall stand at the four of those of Black land as the apis. That is, that Allen is translating, because Allen is translating that as a Nesby adjective, and it's proper. That's what you see there. But it's an interesting parallel here in terms of what you see, because as Reggie said, there's a couple of points that Reggie is making very strong here. But as Reggie said, the Apis bull is not just a sacred bull, but it's a black bull. Yep. So when you see here, those of the Black land as Apis, it's actually an emphasis on the fact that it's black. But the interesting thing is that with Pepi the First, we're in the 6th dynasty, and this is kind of what I want to talk about today, that we're in the 6th dynasty. The reference by Ogden Golay, which I'm coming to in a minute, in terms of the historical reference, this implies, Kemet implies a Kemet. But the problem is that we only see it in the pyramid text. But it implies an Old Kingdom origin point that's local, social, descriptive. Next slide. But the issue is that when we look at a text by Nigel Strudwick, text from the Pyramid Age, Nigel Strudwick, this is the most comprehensive compilation of texts in the English language that you can read of the Old Kingdom. And I've looked at every one of these texts. And when you look at all of these texts, what you see is that Kemet is not a word that is used in the Old Kingdom to describe their land. And it's quite interesting. So that there is something that is going on. We can't fully see what is going on in the Second Dynasty all the way up until the beginning of the Middle Kingdom. But there is something there. Next slide. Some of our conversation is actually, some of what I've seen is actually an engagement with the work of Ogden Gourlay here, and an article that he wrote, Kemet and Other Egyptian Terms for Their Land. And Ogden was a professor at New York University. I actually worked with him when I was scholar in residence here at NYU. And I actually have all of his files that were thrown away in the trash by NYU. That's another story. But Ogden, in this, next slide. Well, before I come back to Ogden, I'm going to.
Okay, I want to pause it there and not to, conflate the issue. And so what needs to be addressed here is what Dr. Beatty was saying when it came to the pyramid text. All right. And he made a reference to the brother Reggie and some points that the brother Reggie made as well. And so let's offer clarification for our good brothers, both brother Reggie and Dr. Mario Beatty, who he himself admits that he said there's something going on with this idea of a Kemet, but he doesn't necessarily know what it is. All right. So let's help them out and go over this for them. So just to kind of go back now, if you all are familiar with the previous videos that we did, we had the brother Reggie on our channel, and he gave a presentation. You know, we gave him the opportunity to give his full presentation uninterrupted, and he gave a presentation on his contribution of this particular topic. And during that presentation, he had offered this particular slide here. And he also said the same thing, similar things at this ASCAC conference. So here is a screenshot of his particular slide that he used when presenting. Now, what he says here, I'll just read it. He says, both Asar is dependent of his European quote, but does not check other sources. Both are incorrect. The first usage is in the pyramid text of Pepi. Now, mind you, this is at a point where the brother Reggie is attacking Ogden Gourlay, which is the same thing that same person that Dr. Mario Beatty brings up. And so you're going to see the connection between brother Reggie and Dr. Mario Beatty, where they're arguing the same thing, where they're referencing each other. So brother Reggie says that Ogden Gourlay is incorrect. And brother Asar Imhotep is incorrect. And the first usage of Kemet is in the pyramid text of Pepi, utterance 674, section 1998b. And he says, Km.t. Well, here it is in the pyramid text, those of Km.t. All right. So hopefully you all can see that. And it says he is incorrect, speaking about Asar Imhotep. And then in red, he and his team does not know chronology. And by his team, brother Reggie is referring to myself and the brother Sonjedi. All right. And so here is the transliteration of that particular line. And then the translation, it says, stand in front of the chiefs, divine ancestors of Kemet Hep. And so here's the actual hand transcription, all right, of that particular line of 1998, A and B. And then this is Brother Reggie's notes on the side. He says, this plate is hidden from almost every translation of the pyramid text, but is referred to. Egyptologists hide this. And that's his own opinion and commentary. And then he goes on to say at the bottom here, it says, this is a handwritten note of Kurt Seth of the miscellaneous utterances of the pyramid text. This note is written in 1908. Though this plate should be well known, it is not. The implications are enormous. In the Old Kingdom, stand before the chiefs of the black community or state at Hep. This is Reggie's wording. And then he goes on to say that the 11th dynasty leaders simply used a theme from the past to reform Kemet. Kemet was originally a mythical land of black concepts such as Kemwer, Per Kem Kem, a black ancestral house associated with the Nubian goddess Bes. So all of that is Reggie's commentary based on this. So this is what it's being referred to. All right. Now, in terms of this conspiracy that this is somehow hidden from people and that Egyptologists hide this, et cetera, you know, when Reggie made those comments and said those things, I told him that he's incorrect, that it's known, it's in the dictionaries, and I actually presented this as an exhibit to show that you can look this up online. Anybody can look this up and see right here in the TLA, which is the online Wörterbuch dictionary, German dictionary, and you can see these very same lines and the very same entries where you can see this information. All right, so it's not hidden at all. And so what he should say is that people may not be familiar who don't study this particular information, but it's not hidden. No one's trying to hide this from anyone. All right. Now, so here is those same two lines, but here's some more context around it. And mind you, all of this is within our publication that we just produced, that we showed at the beginning of this session. But so here's the transliteration of these lines and then the translation at the bottom. And so 1998 A and B is right here, but I'm also giving the previous line, which is 1997, and then also C, which is also a part of 1998. So I'll read the English, and it says, the mourners will call you as Osset. And this is where you see Jesui, Enek, Sementi, Osset. All right. This is what it's saying. The jubiler will cheer you as Nebet Hut. And you see Nebet Hut here, or you can see the glyphs here. And forgive me if it's too small on your screen due to the avatars. And I'm going to read it. I know the avatars are probably blocking the bottom of this slide. Yeah, but hopefully you'll be able to hear me read this out. Then it goes on to say, you will stand before the shrines as men. And this is the second part here. And then it goes on, this next line, it says, you will stand before the inhabitants of Kemet, which is Athribis, as Apis, or Hapu. And you can see the term Kemet.t right here in the glyphs here. All right. And this is what Reggie is referring to. And thus, this is what Dr. Mario Beatty is referring to. And then it goes on to say, you will stand in the wide lake as Sokar. All right, you see Sokar here. You see the word for wide lake. Okay, so with some context, because the opinion that Dr. Beatty gave was that the emphasis is on the color black to compare. All right, but if you read this entire section, I'm only giving you four additional lines. But if you read the entire section, you'll see that that's just not true. There's no emphasis on people being black whatsoever. Now, but what's important here is that Kemet.t, the Kemet here that this is referring to, those who inhabit this place called Kemet, this particular place, Kemet, is Athribis. All right. And so along with that, now remember, the brother Reggie said that he and his team does not know chronology because they're of the mindset that Athribis comes much, much, much later. But here's how you know that this Kemet that's mentioned here in 1998, Pyramid Text 1998. By the way, this is Pyramid Text of Neith, not Pepi, as Dr. Mario Beatty incorrectly said. All right. It's not Pepi. This is the Pyramid Text of Neith. And you can see the N on the sides here representing Neith. All right. In these particular pyramid texts, this is also Neith. This is also Medgar Evers and Pyramid Text of Teti. Okay, so all three of these are saying the same thing. So you have three lines that are repetitive, okay, because they're coming from different renditions of the same pyramid text, and the N is Ni. So also within the same pyramid text, we have a reference to Kemet. And so I'll read it here. It's in this portion C, but I'll read B and C together so you can get an idea of what it's talking about. It says, Mi ma'ach sa'ech, which is come, see your son. Then it goes on to say, Peker in F, Kemet. Peker in F, Wereret, which means he has passed through where? Kemet. And then also after he has passed through Wereret, which is another place. Now, Kemet and Wereret is here. You see Kemet, but this is talking about Kemet Weret, the gnome. As you can see, the I6 glyph here, which people often identify that as a piece of charcoal, which is not, and we'll go into that in a second. And then you have the bull, and you have the standard here that is used for gnomes. So within the pyramid text, not later, as the brother Reggie claims, within the pyramid text, this place exists, and it's called Kemet Weret, but it was often shortened to Kemet. And so when you see the word Km.t, meaning the inhabitants of Kemet, it's not talking about Kemet as the entire kingdom, which came later in the 11th dynasty. So Odin Gole is absolutely correct that the name Kemet was not used for the entire kingdom until the 11th dynasty, which was the beginning of the Middle Kingdom under the king of Mentuhotep. All right. So this particular Kemet was just one spot within the whole kingdom. And the fuller name is Kemet Weret. Now, if you go back to the video, the clip I just played, you'll notice that Dr. Beatty also said that Nigel Strudwick is probably the most comprehensive source of information that you get from text about the Old Kingdom. And he said he read his work. Now, but he's also, after reading his work, Dr. Mario Beatty is still confused because he said there's something about that Kemet and we don't know much about it. Well, what I just said should help him out and the brother Reggie out and those who were listening. But then also, there's a text that's talking all about this place called Kemet Weret, aka Athribis. Now, mind you, when you hear us say Athribis, Athribis is the name that it was known by the Greeks. In Coptic, it was known as Athribi. And the Coptic got it from the Middle Egyptian form, which is Hut Iri-Ib. Hut Iri-Ib. All right. And what Hut Iri-Ib is, the word Hut is a temple, is a temple, a domain. And so Hut Iri-Ib was the main temple complex within this particular location. So Hut Iri-Ib was a temple complex within Kemet Weret. So just like in normal fashion with the Greeks, they would call an entire place after a temple complex. The same thing occurred with Memphis. You have Mennefer, Memphis, instead of the entire nome in particular. All right. So this particular text, which is written by Vernal Pascal, does a full treatment on this particular place called Kemet Weret. And for the sake of space, I'm putting 3 pages at a time here, and which may make this wording pretty small, but you can see all of the different forms that he's showing. Now, mind you, this is all the way on page 345, 344, 345, and 346 of this particular text. So this is a huge text that's dedicated to this particular place. A full book is dedicated to this place. So I'm only showing you examples of these different forms. So he breaks down the forms in chronological order. So remember, the brother Reggie says he and his team does not know chronology, but yet I'm showing you a source that breaks it down in chronological order here. It says the ancient empire, which is the Old Kingdom. This is the form that's found in the pyramid text of Pepi II. Merin Ray, Ora, Teddy, and so on. So he's given the ancient empire or the old kingdom, the Moyen empire, which is the middle kingdom and its forms and where it's found, and then the new kingdom, its forms and where it's found, and then the intermediate period, forms, where it's found, the Greco-Roman era, forms and found where it's found, and in papyri. Okay, so all these different forms here. Now this is only 3 pages, so I'm gonna go 3 more pages. Here's some more forms. Here's with the I6 glyph in the bull, exactly how you see it in the pyramid text. You see it all in here. Okay, all these different forms. So I'm not going to read them all or explain, but these are all of the different forms here. You see the I6 glyph by itself over the gnome standard, representing Kemet. So all of these are Kemet. All of these represent Kemet, not Kemet as a kingdom, named as a kingdom. Again, that didn't come until the 11th dynasty, but these are all the different forms of the word Kemet. Okay, speaking about Kemet Weret, this particular place. So that's 3 more pages, page 346 to 348. And here are 2 more pages with some more forms. Okay, so here's some more forms of the same thing. And so this place was known as Kemet. And then further in the text, you'll see where he's talking about the gnome and showing how the gnome was known fuller as Kemet Weret. This particular gnome and this word are synonymous. And he talks about Athribis. You see where you see Athribis here, the word Athribis. I'm not sure, it may be too small for you all to see. But he goes on to the different forms and equates them and explains them all. All right. So this is the kind of information that, based on what was said, that is lacking, because this answers the question of where did that original Kemet come from, or what was it talking about? Km.t, those who inhabit Kemet. But what Kemet? The answer is right here. The Kemet that the people that this text was talking about are people. And let me go back to it, where it says, "You will stand before the inhabitants of Kemet as Hapu or Apis." That particular Kemet was not the kingdom. That particular Kemet was none other than Athribis. And that's the name that is known today as Tel Atrib. All right, so if you were to look this up, look up Tel Atrib, and you'll see it's talking about Athribis, and it's going to give you the whole chronology of how it was part of the 10th nome of Lower Kemet towards the Delta. All right, so I wanted to emphasize those things because this is what is missing in the presentations. All right, so sorry, you had anything to add to that? You're muted if you are speaking.
Hello?
Okay, there you go.
Hello?
Yep.
Okay. My bad. I said, yeah, I want to share my screen real quick. And so I showed this last week, but because, it might be small, I just, give one example of, so I'll just wait. Let me hide that. So I'll wait a second so that it comes up. Is it focused on? I don't know if you can see. If it's focused on.
Yeah, I can see it.
My screen. Okay. So again, from that same text, we mentioned this last week, of Athribis by Pascal. He, again, Brother Wudjau just showed a lot of pages where the word Kemet is, they're giving all the forms, the full forms and the short forms. So sometimes you'll see the word written with just a Kim glyph. Sometimes you'll see it written with just the bull. Sometimes you'll see it with the bull with the Kim, with Kemet fully written out and just the bull, or sometimes you'll see, Kemet and then Weret and the bull as a determinative. And sometimes you'll see it like you see it here in this form at the bottom right here, where it says Kemet. So you have the I6 Kim glyph, what is this, G17, not G, it's M17, is it? The owl. Then you have the X1 T glyph. Then you have the word, but you see the bull as a determinative or classifier with the plural strokes, because it's actually a place and it's the abstract. And then you'll see this with the Horus on the standard as a determinative. And so, I don't know if he will play it, Brother Wudjau, if he remembers where Dr. Beatty makes his commentary about one of the forms of Kemet. It just has the Kim glyph with the Horus on the standard as a determinative. So here you see a fuller form of that same word. And the reason why you have this Netcher classifier is because Kemet Weret was the home and the center of the worship of Osiris and also the bull. And so since it was the home of the worship of Osiris, that's why you see this form, here. So just in case, that's a translation of the text of I don't know if Wudjau said it or not, but the Athribis text is written entirely in French. So, and it was published in 1978. So that one little line that you saw here, so this should be bigger on your screen. So where you can see this form here, this Kenti, Hariti, Neb, Kemet, Weret form here. So this is one of the fuller versions. So this is without the T suffix on the Weret, but this is Kemet, Weret. And all of these are classifiers for the entire, phrase. And so in the Book of the Dead, like in some of my earlier texts, I was going off of Budge, who put Kemet Egypt as this. But in the Book of the Dead, this is not Kemet the nation. This is Athribis. And we know because of the Netcher sign. This is a different variation of the word Kemet, which is the Athribis, and it has the Netcher sign. So you'll see some of those Kemet forms that he showed with the 049 glyph. You will also see it with the, N24 gnome or Sapayat glyph. You'll see various different forms. And if y'all ever get a chance to get a hold of that book Athribis, you will see all of these different particular forms. And so I just end with there. So I just wanted to show y'all a bigger copy of just one of the forms at least. And so, it, just in case you missed it because of the screen size of Wudjau's presentation.
Okay, so yeah. And so again, just a quick review. What we just addressed is the fact that one, that both Brother Reggie and Dr. Mario Beatty, they're not familiar with Athribis. And I want you to understand that at no time in Brother Reggie's presentation or Dr. Mario Beatty's presentation did they mention Hut Heri Ib, which is Athribis, or this information that we're sharing right now. All right. And so this may be outside of their review. They may not be familiar with this text. So this is why we are willing to edify everyone by allowing ourselves to go off topic along with Dr. Mario Beatty in order to edify everyone and to share this information. Okay, so again, Kemet, prior to the 11th dynasty, was talking about a smaller localized place called Kemet Weret. That was the larger name of the larger territory. Within that particular territory, there was a main temple complex called Hut Heri Ib. Hut meaning temple or domain, Heri, which is that which is upon, and an Ib, which is within the heart. So you can look this up and you'll find that this is where they get the word Hut Heri Ib, is where you get the word Athribi and Athribis from. All right. So just keep that in mind, that prior to 11th dynasty, when you see the word Kemet being mentioned, or Km.t and so on and so forth, it is talking about this particular place. All right. And that's not the only place that was called Kemet either. All right. There's another one that was that, and that one is talked about by Carl Lepsius in his book called Athribis. And I think it's a longer title to that particular text. Now, mind you, Vernal Pascal, the one that we're sharing or have shared, actually, I'm not sharing anymore, but there you go. This particular text was written when? 1978, you said? So remember, this was written in 1978. So it's been out for a very, very long time. All right. So just want to keep all of that in mind. And I do have the clip where he did speak about the text. So let me go ahead and play that real quick, so everyone have a audio reference to what you were just saying.
Method, unfortunately, is not a historical comparative method. It's an ahistorical.
Let me just get past this. Okay, here we go.
And how does he translate it? The Kim that the Vertebral gives is from the second dynasty.
So he says basically in the Wörterbuch German-Egyptian dictionary, the oldest mention of Kem is in the second dynasty. So this is where it picks up.
Where the determinative on Kim is the horse, falcon on the standards. And how does he translate it? The black horse in the vertebral. So from the earliest attestation, from the second dynasty onward, we actually see Kim meaning black. So you ask, the question is, how do we get to this? That is, that Kim as a root has a long evolution inside the Kemetic.
Okay, so basically that's what Asar was speaking about, where he made reference to Kim and then the bird on the standard. All right, so so everyone should be able to understand what's going on now. Now, so from there, hopefully everyone got that point. And from there, we can move forward to, let's see, because we kind of went backwards and don't want to be too repetitive, but it's just a different issue within the previous clip. And so with this particular clip, the next part, all right, let me go. I'm gonna get to the beginning of this. Now, mind you, remember, keep this in mind that Dr. Mario Beatty's entire presentation was off topic. All right. And the reason why we're going through this is because it's still important, even though it's off topic. It's not a topic that we should just toss to the side. You know, it's just that it's irrelevant to the actual particular topic at hand, but it's worth having a conversation about. And so for the sake of, like I said before, edifying everyone, we are allowing ourselves to go off topic. But I'm trying to get to the beginning of this part where I left off. So you all pardon me. And as you can see, I'm trying to talk and stall. Okay, so here's where we left off. So I'm gonna let it play. And then Asar, if you want me to stop it before I stop it, then just let me know.
No problem.
All the way up until the beginning of the Middle Kingdom. But there is something there. Next slide.
So remember, he said there's something there. He's not quite sure. So we just filled in that information. Okay, so everybody make sure you rewind this video and understand what's going on and seek out those citations and materials. And again, if you have any further questions, I guess we might take some questions after we're done, but also join the Facebook group, Seshu Mani Meta Nature, and you can continue the conversations there.
Some some of our conversation is actually, some of what I've seen is actually an engagement with the work of Ogden Golay here, and an article that he wrote, Kemet and Other Egyptian Terms for Their Land. And Ogden was a professor at New York University. I actually worked with him when I was scholar in residence here at NYU. And I actually have all of his files that were thrown away in the trash by NYU. That's another story. But Ogden, in this, next slide. Well, before I come back to Ogden, to give this presentation as a shout out to my master teacher, Theophile Obenga. And, you know, Dr. Carruthers has always taught me, many have taught me, to let the ancestors speak for themselves and let the elders speak for themselves. And so I'm not going to, in terms of what Kemet is, I'm going to read Obenga and my translation of Obenga in French. And
so I have to point this out. Now notice this is his statement that he just made is a further confirmation that his entire presentation, he did not intend to address the actual topic. He just now said he's not even going to give his rendition of what Kemet means. He's going to just read from something else. So he's admitting not to do any work, and he's just going to read from something else, you know, not to ascertain or to figure out or to investigate. He's just going to read. All right. So I just want to make sure everyone picked up on that. And so I'm gonna let it continue. I don't know if you want to say something first, Asar.
I mean, other than the obvious appeal to authority, but I guess we can address all of that once you finish the clip. So go ahead.
Okay.
And from French. And this is a work, a relatively recent work that Obenga has published. And this is part of a debate. It's a book called Leçons de la lutte contre l'africanisme eurocentriste, meaning of the struggle against Eurocentric Africanism. And this is an excerpts from this book in a debate that he held or in print with Marc Etienne, who is the curator of the Egyptian collection at the Louvre Museum. So I'm just going to read you what he wrote in response to Marc Etienne in this debate, which actually resolves some of the issues that we're talking about. Next slide.
So I gotta pause it. So Dr. Beatty is under the impression that this particular dialogue or exchange between Dr. Obenga and Marc Etienne, he feels that exchange is applicable to this conversation. Okay, so I just want everybody to be aware of that.
Oh, before you continue, before I forget, because you remember he introduced Ogden Golay into the conversation, but it seems misplaced, as if he didn't finish his thought, as if he forgot a few slides and then jumped to this one. But he made the comment that a lot of this conversation centers around the article of Golay. That is incorrect. And again, it appears as if Brother Reggie is feeding him information versus Dr. Beatty actually paying attention to what it is that I've said, or actually even engaging me. So Dr. Beatty has my contact information. If he was confused on anything, he should have contacted me directly, because Reggie is just off on a number of things and he misconstrues arguments. And so my analysis did not hinge on Golay. Golay was mentioned in my 2014 article because, of course, I'm doing the proper literature review. And there's not that much text on an analysis of the word Kemet. And again, with me dealing with linguistics, I'm looking for a linguistic answer. Golay never tries to deal with the word Kemet linguistically. He is strictly looking at Kemet in its usage as a philological exercise. So I couldn't rely on Golay even if I wanted to in terms of my linguistic conclusions, because Golay never makes a linguistic analysis. And so on that point, he further digs himself in a hole by not properly understanding the nature of the argument, what is actually being argued and what is actually being questioned here, and the usage of my sources in the conversation in its proper context. And so because he didn't understand that, his analysis was further off than it was, primarily just because of what he just said before he started going into what he's about to go into now, talking about Theophile Obenga's text, because he didn't want to deal with the meaning of the word Kemet question, which is the whole point of why we're here.
Exactly. All right. Okay. So, that's pretty straightforward. All right. So I'm gonna let the clip play, and we're gonna see. And it just further confirms, as you said, that should be pointed out, is that he mentioned Golay, showed his picture, and if you just follow the slides, that seemed out of place, because now we're talking about Obenga, and he mentions Obenga as being his master teacher and so on and so forth, and Obenga by far is one of our greatest scholars to date that's alive and still putting out different works. But he shows the picture of Golay. Golay, if you look at his picture, obviously he would be somebody that we would consider a white man or a European or a Caucasian. And so it's this implication that Asar Imhotep or the Shemsu Heru research team, we rely on white people. That's the the side kind of innuendo that's within these slides that I'm picking up, because to show Golay's picture, because they didn't show Obenga's picture, because everybody's already familiar with Obenga, and so to show Golay's picture of how he looks and everything, but then don't really even talk about him, because now he switches over right here where we are right now inside this clip. So you got to ask yourself what's behind that, what's behind all of that. And so it's to imply that, okay, these folks over here are our master teachers, but my master teacher are the African ones, Diop and Obenga and Carruthers and so on, because you got to watch what he mentions and everything. And so this is part of what we call today name dropping, or more technically, appealing to authority. All right, so I'm gonna let this play, and then we'll be able to kind of commentate after.
And he's quoting Mark Etienne here. As a result, the ancient Egyptians were Black African, like all other natives of the African continent. Of course, there are Blacks not only in Africa, but in South India and Melanesia, for example. Mark Etienne has not yet mastered the Egyptian language, written in hieroglyphs.
Oh, 1 second. I think I skipped something. Let me go back. Please forgive me. Did I skip something?
I don't think you did. We went straight into it, and then I paused it around right here, and you just push play.
Okay, all right. Sorry about that, you all. Let me play the play.
Some of the issues that we're talking about. Next slide. And he's quoting Mark Etienne here. As a result, the ancient Egyptians were Black African, like all other natives of the African continent. Of course, there are Blacks not only in Africa, but in South India and Melanesia, for example. Mark Etienne has not yet mastered the Egyptian language, written in hieroglyphs. And now he's quoting Etienne. The name of Egypt, Kemet, is often translated erroneously by Sheikh Anta Diop as the country of the Blacks, with grammatical errors added by T. Obenga Passam. Next slide. This translation is based on the distinction, this is still Etienne. This translation is based on the distinction made by the Egyptian text between one part called the Black Land, Ta Kim, and it's using Ta as a definite article, Ta Kim. That is to say the cultivated valley in reference to the color of the Nile soil. And the other part, the red land, that is to say the desert. The word Kim means to be complete in the sense of completed, achieved, which refers to the well-attested concept of the unity of Egypt, materialized by the union of the two lands, Upper and Lower Egypt, but also the unity of the country as a divine eye with perfect integrity.
Okay, I want to pause it here. So, do you have any commentary right here? Because it's I want to.
Yeah, it's there are more forms of the word Kim in the ancient Egyptian language, and if you don't mind, real quick, I just want to share my screen again, and there's only 2 slides. So share again. Let's hide that. Let's focus on my screen. And again, to show that when we compared from current slide, again, I'm going to show Chiluba. These are all attested languages, no proto-forms. Chiluba Bantu, Egyptian, and Sumerian. So there are more than, because he's going off the Coptic dictionaries. So when you get to Coptic, this is another reason why Coptic isn't informative on this question, because there are multiple Kim glyphs, KM sequence words that use the I6 glyph, and there's different words there, but only 3 of them show up in Coptic. I think the one is the complete, then there's the Kim for black, and then there's the Kim for Egypt, or Kemet for Egypt. But when you go into the Middle Kingdom and even some of the New Kingdom forms, you will see different words written with, Kim. And so this gives us the older forms. Again, what's the axiom of historical comparative linguistics? The older forms are the most high quality and valuable forms. And so when we do the analysis, and I use Sumerian again, we can see wherever there's a K in the first consonant position, there is a D in Sumerian. So we have Dun, prophet, Kim, prophet, Chiluba, Makasa, prophet, gain. So there's an explanation why there's an S here. And in my text, all of these forms, all of these second consonants that you see here in the red are attested and compared to Kim in various forms. So this Chiluba here is just extra, but the main focus is Sumerian and Chikan. But when you read the text, you'll see that I separate, and you'll see all of these different forms here compared to Kim and its variations. So these, it may not look like it over here, but believe me, you'll just have to trust me for now. All of these forms are attested in the same way that I do, just like this. And so I just took a few of those that I already demonstrated the sound meaning correspondences for, and now placed it in the same table with Sumerian, for which I just did Chiluba and Chikam beforehand. So Kol, Udub, there's a controversy about this entry in the Egyptian language, because it's in the dictionary of Ehrman and Grappa, but we're having a hard time finding any attestation of Kim or Paula burning coals. But just in case it does exist, it would correspond to Udub, coal, in Sumerian. And so Jikala coal Makala charcoal in Chiluba, Dalu a leather object, Kim black leather, Jikoba skin, Chiseba animal skin leather. And this is a palatalized form of this. And so I show where B and M and N all correspond in Sumerian, and how all of those correspond to L and R. So all of this has already been done. So you're just looking at a summary here. But notice, regardless, at least in this first consonant position, everything is the same. And so there's reasons for these other forms. But totality, then Kim, total up, Dar to break up, crush, Sekim Kim, destruction, annihilation. And so in Sumerian, L's and R's interchange, as well as L and N, but D, the voiced, dental, it corresponds to the voiceless T here. And so, as I said, R and L's, interchange. So when we look at some more Kim words, illness, disease, to be ill, Kemet, a woman's disease, Sama, to be sick. Again, all of these forms are accounted for in the earlier work. Till to end, Kim to end, Inkum to end, finish. Till to be old, long lasting, Sekim to grow old, to be wise. All using the I6 glyph. Kulu, ancient, old, elder. Till to live, dwell, to sit, doesn't exist in Egyptian, but Shikama, sit, sitting, wait. So, all of these forms reaffirm. So even if one is missing in one of the languages, the other related languages confirm its existence. So you can see that everything here obeys sound laws in the language. And so that's why, hold on, we have these forms here, why I can go into Sumerian and argue Kiduru, because we already established these forms here. What just happened here? You there?
Yeah, I can still hear you. I just have my mic muted, so there's no echo.
Okay. So I don't know what
yeah, I can
happened with the screen here.
Well, we were still seeing it.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know what's going on. Oh, there we go. So let me just exit out of there. So, when he's talking about the Kim, and again, I just have to stress that Sumerian holds down and confirms the meanings that we have addressed, and I do the same thing in Chiluba. But those Kim forms, the point was that there are more than just what Obenga is talking about here, and it is those other homonyms that we already recognize that allows for us to do the comparison that we were doing and come to the conclusion that we came to. So you can continue.
I just want to point out that there, there's instances, I think everybody can relate to this example. You know how you're watching a movie, the average movie is about 2 hours long, right? And you know how you're watching a movie, and let's say that you're about an hour into the movie, and then one of your friends comes and sits down and watch the movie with you, but instead of them being quiet and catching up on the movie and seeing where the movie is and trying to catch up and not disturbing the flow of the movie for the people who were there on time and are watching the movie, instead they start opening their mouths and asking questions. Oh, what happened? Who died? Who did this? Who did that? You know how disruptive that is? I think that every one of us can identify with that. We got some friends that do that. Okay. And so this is the thing that's going on that happens in these hangouts sometimes, that we have people that will come late to the conversation, don't know what was said and don't know what's being said currently, but yet will type and then throw the topic off or have different conversations within the chat. So I'm speaking none other than our good brother Reggie Mabry, who came in the chat just now. He admitted that he came into the chat late, but then he's asking questions. So I just simply recommended to him, which is just common courtesy and common communication etiquette, that he takes time to catch up on the conversation so that we don't have to repeat ourselves and no one in the chat is thrown off, because everybody in the chat has pretty much been here the whole time and has been following along, because the things he mentioned, we already spoke about. All right. So that was my request to the brother. And he brought up I could block him if I have to, which I have no intention of doing. You know, I don't come from that spot. I don't, get down like that. If you just be belligerent or outright just disruptive, then I may have to step in and do something. But that's not the intention here. Okay. So again, brother Reggie, if you're hearing what I'm saying, that this conversation is maybe not the kind of conversation that you're used to, but if you come in late to the conversation, it's just good practice. It's just good character, good practice, good communication etiquette, simply to just catch up on a conversation before opening your mouth, or in this case, typing. We will have a question and answer session after we stop. And unlike last time when you were typing all in the chat during the conversation, then when we open up question and answers, you left. Hopefully you'll stick around this time and ask your questions and not run. All right. So let's continue with the video.
Quoting Mark Etienne here, next. And now here's Obenga's voice. Mark Etienne wanders. And it is a serious error for a quote-unquote curator of Egyptian antiquities at the Louvre Museum in Paris. What he writes does not make any sense. Km.t translated Kemet by the land of the blacks in which work, which page? I have advanced this translation with grammatical errors in which work, which page? Why lie constantly, you Eurocentric Africans? Next slide. Now he's giving his demonstration. If Ta Kim means black land, and if you consider Kim to be completed, achieved in the translation of this expression, Ta Kim, what is then the final translation? Something like this: complete black land completed. That is, here the word Kim has a double meaning, black and to be complete at the same time. Mark Etienne is totally wrong. He ignores the existence of synonyms and homonyms in Egyptian. He confuses everything with incredible frivolity. Next slide. Here are the facts ignored by Mark Etienne. Kim noir, adjective. The hieroglyph of the owl is employed as a phonetic complement. Kim, to complete, to be complete, you see the determinative of the papyrus rolled up, tied, and sealed at the end there, conveying abstract notion. Thus, there exist two words, Kim, which are homonyms, but not synonyms. Adjective black and the verb to be complete. Next slide. They are different at both the lexical and grammatical level for all Egyptologists of the world, with the exception of the erudite curator of the Louvre, Mark Etienne. Next slide. What is the authentic Egyptian text that has or presents Ta Kim, black land, to designate Egypt? There is no text. That's what Obenga is saying. Like, why are you even, coming at me? This designation is a pure invention of our Egyptological scholar who should avoid the scientific lie. Mark Etienne is a dishonest man in regards to scientific research. The well-attested concept of the unity of Egypt materialized by the union of the two lands, Upper and Lower Egypt, not Kim to be complete, but it is Sema to unite and also Ches to unite. Everyone knows it. Next slide. The Sema-Tawi right unification of the two lands is known by the beginner studying Egyptology. Mark Etienne can now learn it. Next slide. In addition, the Egyptian lexicon gives the following: Kemet, le pays noir, the black country in English. Kemet, les gens de pays noir, les hommes et les femmes de pays noir, les habitants de pays noir. That is the Egyptians of pharaonic times. That is the men and women of the black country, the people of the black country, the inhabitants of the black country. The inhabitants of black Africa are black African. The inhabitants of the black country are blacks. It is the same reasoning. The Melanesians are precisely black islanders. Melas, black, and Nessos, Dorian, Nasos, island in Greek. Next slide. In his work.
Okay, so let me pause it there because now he's going to go into what he started with by showing Ogden Gole, and now he's getting back to Ogden Gole, and he's going to talk about borders. So let's kind of tighten up what he just expressed with Obenga, and I'm going to just give some commentary first, and Asar, just jump straight in. So if you all listen to what Beatty was quoting from and reading from his slide, you have to understand this, that Mark Etienne, his argument that Kim means complete is not our argument. So that entire exchange between Dr. Theophile Obenga and Mark Etienne has absolutely nothing to do with this particular conversation. It has absolutely nothing to do with us at all. But now, so what happens is, on top of the invoking or appealing to authority by mentioning a very well and beloved scholar of all of us, who is Dr. Theophile Obenga, invoking him and invoking an exchange between our beloved scholar Obenga and then another scholar who is a curator of the Louvre museum. What all that does is solidifies what we were saying before. It appeals to authority and also appeals to emotions, because like I said, the conversation has nothing to do with anything we claim and has nothing to do with the conversation. We don't claim that the Kim and Kemet means to be complete at all. All right. So that entire exchange was really just irrelevant. It's nice to see that exchange and everything, but it's irrelevant to the topic and it's irrelevant to us. And now he did this before with Abdallah. If you all remember last week, we played the clip where he associated us with Abdallah from the UNESCO symposium, where Abdallah claimed that Kim doesn't mean black, and that Sonoran had to step in and say, yes, Kemet or Kim does mean black. Well, we don't agree with Abdallah either. So that part and this part are identically irrelevant. And so a lot of time could have been saved had he just left this out, because it's irrelevant to the discussion and it's irrelevant to us. But because, as I said before, and this last thing on this, because this was not styled as a proper and formal debate, it's just a presentation giving the impression of a debate. This is why I call it a pseudo style debate. The dangers of that, like I said last week, is exactly what we see. He's given the impression that he's addressing our claims or, what we say about this topic, but he's really not. And because there was no question, no Q&A after this, and because this wasn't styled as a real debate, not a pseudo one, that, people may walk away from this thinking that he says something that he really didn't say. It's a lot of things that are said, but not really saying anything, because nothing here presented has to do with us or that we don't know. In fact, Asar already just now showed the fact that we understand the homographs, if it wasn't for the determinatives, and homonyms, the way we pronounce these words now, that Kim, there's a word Kim to be completed. There's a word Kim that means grain, fruits. There's a Kim that means black. There's a Kim, there's a Kim that means argumentative and things. There's several different Kims. We already know this. So that's my piece on that.
And we can find cognates for all of those in Sumerian and Bantu. But the point here is that Dr. Beatty clearly did not know what the argument was, what the discussion was, and he definitely didn't know what our argument was. And so, again, this is the reason why we came to the debate with the book in hand, a contribution to the meaning of the the debate on the place named Kemet, because again, I have been in these conversations for 20 years. You know I look like I'm fresh out of high school, you know, but I've been doing this for quite some time. And I know I don't look fresh out of high school, but follow me. And so I've heard all of these debates before, and I can tell by the nature of certain people's conversations what they have read, what they understand about the debate and things of this nature. And so it was imperative that we have on paper for those people who are in the audience and the people who are listening to Dr. Beatty's or Brother Reggie's video to actually have our argument on paper, because none of them understand the nature of the conversation at all. And because they don't understand the nature of the conversation, they don't know the history of this conversation. They are all over the place and making up arguments as they go. And so you can see that, especially, for example, Ned and Reggie keep changing their arguments, and Dr. Beatty and Theophile Obenga are making totally different arguments. They don't even have one consistent argument in terms to what the meaning of Kemet is, but they're supposed to be on the same team, you know, trying to debate us. We're solid in our argument, in the methods of our argument, but they're all over the place. And so, as I mentioned to Dr. Beatty, you know, when I told him in the off stage conversation, is that he was appealing to authority, as we just seen, and then you appeal to an authority who doesn't defend Diop on his argument, because you would never find Obenga discussing, you know, previously in defending Diop's position that the word Kemet means black people. Dr. Beatty knows he can't defend that, which is why he tries to adopt and adapt the position of Obenga that it refers to the country. See, Obenga's trying to he's still trying to keep a part of Diop's argument by making an ambiguous claim and saying the nation, you know, the black country, and that it somehow indirectly refers to the skin color of the people, because you can't using the grammar of the ancient Egyptian language, you can't defend Diop's point, which is why you don't see Obenga do it, which is why you didn't see Mario Beatty do it, because he already admitted on the stage, for example, that Km.t means the inhabitant of a place, because Dr. Beatty actually knows the grammar rules, unlike Ned or Neb, who really can't read the hieroglyphs. And he can't comprehend what the actual arguments are and what certain morphological functions are and things of this nature. So Beatty doesn't defend Ned or Neb or Diop on this point. And so Reggie totally flips, and now he's, you know, arguing for black bulls, and then the bulls being related to the humans, because there's this one text that refers to the noble herd of God, and then that somehow is supposed to be representative or the inspiration for the place named Kemet as the country, but never is the country ever referenced with a bull determinative. Like, we can find dozens upon dozens of examples for the bull in Athribis as a determinative, and even part of the main word itself. But when it comes to Kemet, you never see a bull, just like you don't ever see the hieroglyph determinative or the N33 stone pellet, which are classifiers for color and texture. And so, you know, it's very loaded what he tried to do here. But this is what I expected, because, you know, again, I have I have debated Egyptologists on this question. Serious ones from the Oriental Institute and other places. You know, linguists on this issue. And they don't have an answer because they took for granted that what was in the dictionaries were correct, and they had no means to verify it. So lastly, you can, as Wudjau said, he's trying to paint it as if we are adopting the position of these white scholars and the random black scholar from the Sudan from the 1974 Cairo Symposium. This is far from the case. This shows that he does not know my position. Because if he knew, he'd know that my position is opposite of mainstream Egyptology and Diop's. Meaning this is my own original opinion based off of doing the actual work. And ironically, there are other prominent scholars in the African school who have independently come to the same conclusion, doing the same type of work. So when I mention to him this, he's unfamiliar with it. And so he knows who Dr. Oscar Pafuma is. He has published in the Ankh Journal. He's one of the top French-speaking African Egyptologists and linguists who is very well known in the French-speaking world. He does not agree with Diop or Obenga on this question. Of course, we know Jean-Claude Mboli doesn't agree on this question. Brother Dr. Kamani Nahusi doesn't agree on this question. Dr. What's his name? Kipkoech Sambu, who belongs to a people who are descended from the ancient Egyptians, doesn't agree with Diop and Obenga on this question. All of them independently have come to the same conclusion that I have. But I'm the only one who has went to the depths of research that that was needed to come to more definitively come to this conclusion. So my work reinforces theirs, but I came to this conclusion way before, with the exception of what's his name, Dr. Oscar Pafuma, because I think his came out in his analysis is either 1997 or 2007, but I think it's 1997. So in 1997, he already came to the conclusion that Kemet does not equal black land or black people, but that it refers to a land with, what's the name? Matter of fact, let me share my screen because I think I have a slide. Let me reduce that. I think I have a slide real quick with these forms because I got this from Dr. Oscar Pafuma with full citation in the upcoming text. So these are the conclusions that Dr. Oscar Pafuma came to. So let me share, get the focus back on my screen. I'm going to turn it back to you, Brother Wudjau. Hold on. So again, let me go from current slide. So I'm going to give it a few seconds to appear on y'all's screen. So, you know, as I argued from, you know, the beginning of this discussion, is that the true meaning of Kemet refers to a new pasturage with an abundance of grass and water, and more specifically, a riparian land. And so I added, you know, with edible plants as well. So basically, vegetation, water and vegetation, but broken down more specifically, grass and edible plants. And so here's the three witnesses that I'll talk about here: Middle Egyptian, Sumerian, and Chiluba. But here are the forms that come from Dr. Oscar Pafuma, Egyptologist and linguist out of Cameroon. So in his analysis, he came to the conclusion that the word Kemet is cognate with these forms here. So for example, and these are all Bantu: Kam, farm, in Dowa and Bassa. Bassa's Cameroon. Ikam, Esatako, Kam, Ngodzin, in Runda, Kumadin, din being a suffix. Kim in regards to a country, city, or village. Kom, country, region. Ikoma. Hold on one second. My headpiece.
Hello? Say something, Wudjau, if you can hear me.
Yeah, I can hear you. I just have myself unmuted.
Okay. All right, so I gotta charge this headpiece. Anyway, but you can hear me well.
Right, I can hear you clear.
Okay, cool. So you can see this form, these forms here, Kom, rural area, Enzim, Komwa, country, region. And so Dr. Kipkoech Sambu, based on college and language, would be more in alignment with what you see here: country, region, village, city, Goomba, city, land which in Gala, which is in Ethiopia, Gomji, land which grows warm and is healthily cultivated. All of these, this being derivative forms, just a word for country, but derives from a word meaning farm or irrigatable land. So we have these coming from the African school that you have to compare with in terms of Kim. And so I'm the one who went and did the work that demonstrates that Dr. Oscar Pafuma was on the right track and was correct. And so so I'll just saying in there and you can continue.
Okay, so I'm wondering if this is a good spot to conclude with this discussion, and then we pick up next time, because what he's gonna go into is he's gonna mention the 049 and N23, and I know we have some things to say about that, but I don't know, maybe we should pick up from there, because I think people will be definitely interested in that conversation. But by it being at the tail end of a long video, it may not do its justice, So how you feel about coming to a conclusion now? We can probably take some questions.
Yeah, it's 1 o'clock now, so that's 2 hours given our fiasco from earlier.
Yeah.
So starting from 11 o'clock. So yeah, that's a good point to stop.
Okay, so we'll end here, and hopefully everyone who's tuned in is keeping up with everything. So at this point in time, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to type them in. I guess we'll spend this. I guess it's up to Asar how long we're gonna do it, but please go ahead and type your question. And I'm hearing a little echo. It's probably me. As a matter of fact,
Is that me over here?
No, it's probably okay. Oh, it is you.
Okay.
Somehow.
Let me just mute my mic real quick.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just setting up for questions. So yeah, if you all have any questions to ask about things that we mentioned today, by all means, type in your questions and we'll get to them. Same thing we did last week. And so, but while we're waiting for questions, I just a couple of things I want to reiterate. Let me just switch it back over to this here. So let's just do a quick bullet point review of what we did discuss. For those who did come late and may want to just kind of get a quick gist of what we did talk about. First of all, the ASCAC conference took place, April 18th through the 21st. And like I said, I was unable to make it. And anticipating the conversation, what I did was I wrote an essay to contribute to the discussion and the conversation. I also did a presentation, and then when I was unable to make it, the brother Sonjedi filled in for me. So although I was not there in body, I was definitely there in spirit. So let that be known. And so what we did, we came together and did essays and documented all of this prior to the event now. And we had this text available at the event. The brother Asar Imhotep held it up and showed everyone that it will be available a few days after the actual conference, and people could order. And so here it is on the screen again in the cover. And we have people that have gotten it. Matter of fact, the brother Kufu, I don't know what he had some deal with Amazon because he got his the next day before everybody else. So the book is available on Amazon. It's about 100 pages, and it's a collection of these essays, which is all the information that we're talking about tonight and previously is in there. So what did we cover? Basically, we discussed tonight the inconsistent logic of Dr. Mario Beatty when he brought up the issues about Coptic. And basically, the gist of it is that Dr. Mario Beatty suggests that we use Coptic. Why? Because it is the end of an evolutionary cycle of the Kemetic language, and so Coptic is the end, the last stage of the Egyptian language. And he gave the examples of how do we know the meanings of X, Y, and Z. We know those meanings because of the evolution that ends in Coptic. So he gave the example of Asar's name, Asar Imhotep, and he said in Coptic it is Wasere, E, and then Hotep. They all survive in Coptic, and they have a history, and that's how we know how these words mean. He also gave the example of Tep-Hesep, and we know what it means because of Coptic. But now, so here's where the logic is inconsistent, because stepping outside of Coptic or doing the historical comparative work that Asar Imhotep does, he labels that as ahistorical and incorrect method, and that he says we have to deal with Coptic. But now the question is that there's no Coptic dictionary and there's no Egyptian dictionary at all that defines the place name Kemet as Black people. So if we are to follow Dr. Mario Beatty's advice, we would never come away with the definition of the place name Kemet as Black people. But yet here we are arguing against that very definition or hypothesis by a select few of people. So this is where it's inconsistent. So Mario Beatty is under the impression or in agreement with the place name Kemet, meaning Black people, but yet we do not find that definition in any Egyptian dictionary, be it Coptic, Demotic, or Middle Egyptian, etc., etc., etc. Okay, so how do you come to that conclusion? You have to use work and you have to use methods outside of these dictionaries and therefore Coptic. All right, so that was the first thing we discussed. And then we went over this issue about the mentioning of Km.t in the pyramid text and how that Km.t, what it means is the inhabitants of a place called Kemet. This particular place called Kemet is not talking about Kemet as a name for the kingdom, but Kemet as in the short form of the word Kemet-Weret, which is the 10th nome of Lower Egypt or Lower Kemet, aka Athribis in Greek, Athribi in Coptic, or Hut-Heri-Ib in Middle Egyptian. That was the temple complex within this particular larger territory called Kemet-Weret. So we were accused of not understanding chronology and all of that good stuff by the brother Reggie. So what I also did tonight was to show the context around that particular text, as well as within the pyramid text itself. It mentions this place called Kemet right here in the text of Teddy, Merin Ra, and Neith. All three of those pyramid texts, you see where it mentions this particular place called Kemet, which is signified by the I6 glyph, with the bull glyph and the standard that is used for sapots or gnomes. This is a particular place that was very, very popular in the Old Kingdom, called Kemet for short, or Kemet for the longer name. All right. And it later became known as Athribis or Athribi, but we're talking about the same place. So there's not an issue of outside of chronology. This place exists within the pyramid texts themselves. So when it talks about the inhabitants of Kemet or Kemet.t, it's talking about the inhabitants of this particular location, not the entire kingdom. All right. That didn't come until the 11th dynasty. Also, what we went over is going back to the Coptic situation. Asar Imhotep broke down and demonstrated why Coptic cannot be utilized in the way that it's said to be utilized, and the handicaps dealing with just Coptic. So he showed how we have to go outside and to confirm and to falsify hypotheses in order to know that we're not dealing with chance results and coincidence. All right. This is all part of the process. Any comparatist or a historical comparative linguist will understand and know these procedures. So Asar shared that with us. And then also the fact that there's a question about Kemet or Kemet.t and the early names of Kemet prior to the 11th dynasty, because there's a lack of knowledge on the part of Dr. Mario Beatty and our other good brothers on Athribis. So what we introduced tonight is this text that is completely dedicated to Athribis or Kemet. It has over 300 pages. Right here, I'm showing page 346. The entire book is dedicated to it. And so I showed and shared all the different forms, or many of the forms. For time's sake, couldn't show all of them. Many different forms in chronological order of how you find this particular place rendered, and the fact that the different forms will produce the words of Kemet, Kemet, Kemwe is another form, and so on and so forth. So I showed these various different pages from this particular text written by Vernal Pascal Vernus Pascal, written in 1978. This is something that we are familiar with. And so we're just passing it on and sharing it with you all so that people won't be confused on not knowing what is Kemet prior to the 11th dynasty. All right. And then lastly, I guess we talked about the arguments that, the implications that we somehow agree with Mark Etienne, that Kim in the place name Kemet means complete, and somehow that it completes the unification process and all this and that. That's not our argument. We've never said those things. We never made those claims. So that was irrelevant. Just like the Abdallah association with us somehow, that's completely irrelevant. We don't say that Kim does not mean black. We understand that that there's an adjective Kim meaning black. Matter of fact, it's a verb to be black, Kemem or Kamam in Coptic, and so on and so forth. All right. So that pretty much. Oh, and then lastly, this notion about well, no, I already covered that. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Did anything I missed? Sorry. You're still muted if you're speaking.
My bad. Yeah, I was just saying, no, that sounds about right.
All right. So yeah, this echo. I don't know if that's from me or because you don't have your headphones in anymore. But okay, so now I'm check to see if any questions. I was just filling in some time so that people could type in their questions. And matter of fact, let me put this back over. Anything we need to share, answer the question, share. But let's get to the chat. So, okay, brother Robert Rand, you had included Sorry, I don't know if you mind muting it. I guess one of them, because I'm hearing an echo.
Yeah, I'm trying to see how you, because it's no other. Everything else is muted.
I may be double backing on me myself, but
Yeah, that may just, I don't know. Okay.
all right, check. Okay, yeah, that's it. Oh, you muted yourself. All right. Well, I guess I'll just say this and then we can alternate muting each other. So yeah, the brother Robert Rand, you had put a link inside the chat, but somebody said that the link wasn't working. So I don't know if you can correct that link, whatever it is that you were sharing. And okay, let's see. Any questions? Okay, the brother Reggie says, sure. What Bantu forms are you using? The particular tribes and from what source? And I'm assuming scrolling up, I don't see anything prepping that question. So
It's one of Reggie's irrelevant questions, since he doesn't know much about linguistics, so he thinks he's asking a serious question. I already gave the source in terms of Dr. Oscar Perfuma. And so those are groups of people, those are languages. And those languages is where you find these forms. So, and if you knew anything about the languages, you know that there's a central database for Proto-Bantu and these forms. And so with full citations and all of that is cited in our text of where you can find these forms. And I expand Oscar Perfuma's analysis and give even more forms from across Africa with full citations. And so it's a question that it's really a non-question, because he doesn't have the background to ask a correct question. Because again, he hasn't read the work, otherwise he'd know the sources. So there's no pick and choose. You do the full analysis just like how I did there. That's why I stuck to, for example, 3 or 4 languages. And we went through every single form of Kim and found them in every single one of the languages. And so we have a idea of what Proto-Bantu sounds like. But again, Reggie, because you don't know the conversation and you don't know linguistics, you're asking irrelevant questions. No one's even arguing or making any statements about pronunciation. We don't have to know pronunciation to know meaning. Do you know the difference between semantics and phonology? Brother Reggie, you can type it in the chat if you know the difference. I'm asking a semantic question. So just like how we don't know how to pronounce Middle Egyptian or New Kingdom Egyptian or Old Kingdom Egyptian, does that stop us from understanding the writing? So again, because you're all over the place, Reggie, you don't know what types of questions to ask. Who gives a hoot how it's pronounced? We know what the meaning is when associated to what graphical forms. And so after this series, after we deal with Dr. Mario Beatty's arguments, I'm going to do a special presentation for those who want some insight into historical comparative linguistics. And I'm going to deal with logic in linguistics and truth tables as it regards to semantics. And so I'm going to give y'all some insight again into historical comparative linguistics and computer science, and how computer science helps us to put linguistics on a more scientific plane in terms of its argumentations and things of this nature. So when anyone tries to throw a pronunciation argument at you when dealing with historical comparative linguistic claims, you can knock that out of the box. And so I'll show you step by step on how to do it. And so, again, most linguists aren't scientists. And so, and they don't have a science background. And so only the ones who, usually are involved in neuroscience, like linguists who are involved in neuroscience or computer science, have that scientific background. And so we know how to make the scientific arguments that that others, saying can't make. So just hold tight for that presentation. And so I'm going to have to re-stimulate some basic math, in you from high school and college. But I'm gonna do it in a way that it is you're able to follow, without hurting your brain. So
Okay. So next question is Emiket. She asks, will you be going over the I6 glyph next week? You mentioned it. You mentioned to cover it a little bit, and I'll just answer that real quick and say yes, because that's what we had planned on doing it, including it as a final piece tonight. But for time's sake, we want to keep it short. So that will be the first order of business for next week. All right. So the I6.
I think that was the 049 glyph. The I6 glyph is a totally different conversation in of itself. And so, if you have the book, A Contribution to the Debate on the Meaning of the Place Name Kemet, you'll see that I have a whole chapter 3, dedicated to the origin of the Kem glyph, the I6 glyph. And so that would take some time. And so the only thing that I think I would deal with in our next conversation is the 049, because that's what he specifically discusses or mentions, and I'm talking about Dr. Beatty in his presentation. So that's what I'll deal with, the 049. But 049, I deal with the 049 glyph also, because again, I've been dealing with this subject for 20 years, and we have people misinterpreting the 049 glyph, still calling it by this archaic idea that it is a city plan or town glyph, and that is not the case. So after we play Dr. Beatty discussing that, then we'll get into what we argue in the contribution to the debate on the meaning of the place name Kemet text.
Okay, yeah, thanks for that correction, because when I read the question, I assumed that it was 049. So our next order of business will be 049, not I6. But I6 is covered in the text. So there you have it. So let's move down further. We have, Brother Reggie says, this is not true. I was the author of the debate. If you were not going to come, you should have let me know. You did not. All right. Just to kind of avoid the adversarial feel of the comments and everything. Number one, the ASCAC conference was not a debate. And this goes hand in hand with what I said about pseudo debates. A lot of what we see on these different platforms are not debates. Debating is something that is different than what we are used to seeing. I've been trained in debating. I've actually went to college and been on an amateur debating team, and I've also dealt with law as a paralegal to understand what debating is and what it looks like. And what we see is not that. It was not styled as a debate. It's a conversation with presentations. So that's number one. And if you were the author of a debate, then I'm not sure what you were an author of. But if you meant to say that you were an author of, putting together the program for the event, that's fine. But I was not in touch with you, the entire time to even come to the event or even know how it was arranged or whatsoever. I heard all of that through the brother Ankh or Ankh. All right. So I did not let you know. Now, in terms of my contribution in writing, I don't need your permission to write an essay and to put it together in a publication as we have done. All right. So just to make that clear and to add to the conversation. All right. So unfortunately, I was unable to make it. I wish I could have made it. And, you know, I do feel I missed out on a good opportunity to network and to meet people and to actually have at least those 20 minutes in hopes to not be cut off, but have those 20 minutes to give a presentation there. So I did miss out on that, and I appreciate the extended opportunity for me to do that, but I was unable to make that. All right. So just wanted to kind of say those things. So from the brother Omar Reed, he asked Asar, how important is migration to morphology and phonology?
Not important at all. The morphology and phonology is not, there's no one-to-one correlation or causal correlation between the two. So a population could be settled in the same area for a long period of time, and the language will still undergo changes. And so languages undergo changes naturally because of the imperfect way in which humans transfer speech. Now, there is a relationship when we're talking about, for example, people like wars, for example, and people who kidnap women from other ethnic groups and bring them into their society and, you know, forcefully marry them and have children. Since they will be the primary caretaker of the children, they're the ones to really first teach the children speech. So if they come from another language group, how they transmit the language to the next generation will be imperfect. So this contributes also to change. And so this is something that I discussed in my 2016 text, Nesubiti, King in Ancient Egyptian. And so if you have an opportunity to get that text, I would encourage you. I discussed that in the first chapter. So there's no direct correlation, but there is a correlation, but in a different context. So I hope that answers your question.
Okay, I'm looking down. I'm going, you know, in the order that I see the questions, and let me see. It says, wow, I think I skipped something. Okay, it says, okay, Brother Reggie's still talking about the event. He doesn't know how who gave Sonjedi permission to speak on the subject. Well, that's besides, you know, this conversation. Then the brother Reggie says, see, this is censorship, your style, not letting me ask questions. Reggie, I have no idea what you're talking about because we're actually reading the questions. It's of no benefit to do that and play victim when, you know, don't, like, you know, imagine something happening or occurring that's not. Are you going to let me call in? If not, let me know so I can do something else. And it's not good to complain. It's not good to make up a problem and then at the same time complain about your made up problem. No one is trying to block you, Reggie, as you implied or asked me. You said I could do. First of all, you say it's okay for me to block you, and then you complain that there's some censorship going on, and then now you're saying, okay, if you don't let me call in, let me know if I can do something else. I mean, come on, that kind of energy. I mean, you know, it's like, that's what I'm saying. I'm trying to encourage you, Brother Reggie, out of love to just relax and change up the the way that you're going about this conversation already.
Let me just say this. First and foremost, this is Asar Imhotep's channel. This is not Amon-Ra Squad. This is not Sonetter. This is not Baba TV. This is not Polite's channel. So I don't do that on my channel. You don't ever see me have I just give the link to people in the chat to join. If they have a question, they ask in the chat and I answer. And so if you are not a part of the original panel, you don't come on the show. That's just how I do it. And so this has nothing to do with, trying to censor you. This is how I do on my channel. And so this keeps my shows focused on the topic. And so when we do that in other platforms, we notice that random folks who have no idea what they're talking about come and ask irrelevant questions like our good brother Reggie just did, and tries to steer the conversation away from the topic. And so I don't allow that on my channel. And so it's funny that you want to ask questions now when y'all had the opportunity to set up question and answer at the ASCAC, but y'all did it. So, don't try to come now and interrupt our flow, because when y'all have y'all talks, I never, ever, ever, ever interrupt or even come to your live hangouts. Never. I don't even enter your chat rooms. I don't ask questions. I don't do any of that. I don't troll y'all. I'm not worried about y'all every single time y'all do a video. I don't even watch y'all videos. Again, this is a subject that I have been studying for 20 years. You're acting like that somehow you are bringing this controversy to light and that you're bringing some new topic. I've already debated this topic with some of the top scholars. Already, this is old. Y'all are new to this, which is why y'all all over the place in your research. And so, having this discussion at ASCAC was nothing. And I'm not saying I'm not grateful for the opportunity to speak there, but I already submit to ASCAC. I already had a different discussion at ASCAC. So this wasn't, if we had this discussion at ASCAC or not, it would have served me nothing. And so, we got to keep this in perspective. Good brother Reggie, you new to this, not me. And so this is a new research topic for you all. There's a reason why in a week's time we could have put this book together, because we've been doing this already. These are what you see in this text are our notes, which became 100 pages of our notes for the bigger text that we got, because we've been researching this for so long. And so I'm not, trying to toot my own horn and thing. I'm just trying to put things into perspective. This is an old topic for me. I've been researching this since 1998. Been involved with these conversations with people from the Oriental Institute, Egyptologists in Egypt, Egyptologists in France, Egyptologists in Cameroon, Egyptologists in London, Egyptologists in Germany. So here comes Brother Reggie, who he never heard of Ithribis or didn't even know what a toponym was. And somehow we're supposed to be equal on this subject. We're not. And so this is a teaching moment. We're trying to educate you, but y'all seem to have a comprehension issue. So I'm not going to waste my time trying to explain and go back and forth with you when you refuse to learn basics. And so, no, I don't do that on my channel. And so if you have a question, you put it in the chat like everybody else, and we answer them, just like we're doing now. So that's all I have to say. Next question.
Okay, speaking of basics, this question comes up a lot. The brother Reggie asked it too, but no, let me take it back. I'm sorry, strike that. The brother Reggie asked a question, and I'm just gonna read both questions together. Well, I only see one of them. And so he's the next one up as well. He says, let me ask both questions. He says, so we know how Proto-Bantu sounds, and that's a question. The other question is, so how are you building cognates on transliterations when we don't know how it sounds? So in one question, he says, so we know how Proto-Bantu sounds, question mark. Then the second question assumes that we don't know how it sounds. And then he asked the question. And so, when people do that, it's kind of a little different. But on the topic of transliterations, let me just say something first about transliterations. Just so nobody else in the chat is confused about that. Transliterations, we discuss transliterations in our text. By we, I mean the Seshu Mani Metanetra. In our text addressing the decipherment question, a rebuttal to Professor Walter Williams, we give a full definition of transliterations, what it is, translations, what it is and how they're different, and transcriptions and how all three of those things are different and what they entail and what they're involved with. And so I would recommend you get that for full text. But in gist, transliterations is simply an orthographic endeavor. And for those who may not know what orthography is, dealing with script. So it is an endeavor that someone does based on writing. It has nothing to do with meaning or semantics. Translation is a semantic endeavor because you're trying to take meaning from a source language and bring it over into a target language. That's called translation. Trans means to move. So you're moving a meaning from source over to target. Transliteration is your trans, again, is in the word. So you're moving a script from a source script over into a target script, irregardless of meaning. You're not focused on meaning. You're trying to just transfer one script over into another. And so this is what it's all about. So when people say, how are you building cognates on transliterations, then that shows a lack of understanding of the simple things that I just mentioned, and also dealing with phonology, the difference between phonemes and phones, or the phonological inventory of these languages, and how they're mapped to what we call graphs or graphemes, which is what a writing system is. And so we explain those basic things within the text. A rebuttal to Professor Walter Williams. Has the Egyptian hieroglyphic writing system been deciphered? Okay, so we discussed all of that. And so that question should not be asked at this point because it shows confusion on the part of the person asking the question. So, to help out everyone who may be confused as well, that's not what's being compared. Transliterations. All right, it goes into the phonemic or the phonological inventory of a particular language. And as Asar always explained in the historical comparative method, you're establishing sound meaning correspondences. And so once you establish those correspondences, you establish a cognates, then you do your comparisons. Now you'll know what's a cognate and what's not. You can confirm or disconfirm your proposed cognates when you first set out. It's a scientific process. So I know Asar can add a lot to it, but he's been explaining it over and over again. I mean, probably got to give him a break on this one. But Asar, what do you have to say on that? And you muted it.
Yeah. Again, I already mentioned that I'm going to have a separate video that explains this from a scientific process and what it is that we mean by a cognate and I'm a filter this through the field of computer science and predicate logic. And I'm gonna show y'all how what is actually being compared, because you never compare real sounds. It's silly. You only are comparing graphemes on paper, and whether those graphemes correspond to actual phones or not is, to an extent, almost irrelevant, because you're dealing with truth values, and what we're looking for are binary truth values. We're looking for yes or no equations, or answers to particular arguments in the system. So I'm talking, and it'll be easier for me to explain when I have graphs in front of you. So just hold tight. So after we deal with Dr. Mario Beatty's commentary, we'll deal with this later. And so, as always, fully cited, and I'm gonna go step by step so that you can follow and you can use this in your own work. So we can dispel this myth that this is even relevant to establishing cognates or not. So that's all I have to say.
Yeah, and just something quickly to add. When you look at people that are doing comparisons, they are on paper, when they publish their work, they are on paper displaying or expressing their work using transliteration. So the idea of transliterations being used and as if that's a question to even ask is a bit strange when you're the least bit of familiar with the process and what's going on when that process is done. So so my suggestion is for people to kind of brush up as a in between, up until Asar gives that presentation. What you can do tonight or soon is to look up phonemes and phones, the difference between phonemes and phones. And so your research question or homework is, what is the difference between phonemes and phones? Because when you research that and find the answer to that, it will help you understand more of what Asar is going to be presenting, because you'll understand what makes distinctions. Also, let me throw another word in there: phonemes, phones, and allophones. Phonemes, phones, and allophones. Look those things up and learn what the difference is between those. You have an abstract level and then a surface level of sound, and then you have sounds that could or phonemes that could be represented by multiple phones, and they're referred to as allophones. So I'm giving you little hints and things, but make sure you look up and do that research, and it will definitely help you out on that question. All right. So I'm trying to skip down because I know we've been on. So let's see. People having let's see.
There's really no questions.
Oh, you already been looking?
Yeah, I already been looking, and so just mainly commentary. And so
Okay, yeah.
all of the questions that Reggie are asking, I hate to say that there's no bad questions, but his questions are not well formed, first of all, and they're not well informed questions. And so the kinds of questions he asks requires a totally separate conversation on the basics of linguistics and or the basics of quote unquote Bantu studies. And so once you have that background, then you can come back to this particular question. But if you have that background, you won't have any, and so I could reverse the question to him. I'm like, well, if that is the case, then what's the point of Obenga comparing Egyptian to Bantu? Matter of fact, Obenga's 1993 work is nothing but a comparison between Egyptian and his native language, Mbochi. And he uses other African languages as a supplement. So go ask Obenga that question.
All right. So I just look, I don't see any other.
And Obenga uses transliterations when he compares.
Yeah, I mean, look in any book. You know. So yeah, if you look in anybody's book, that you have to express it. You have to express it with. See, this is the thing. Just real quick, you know, when we're talking about Middle Egyptian, we're talking about two things at one time. We're talking about Sesh Medu Neter, which is what people call hieroglyphs or hieroglyphic, and then you're talking about Rani Kemet, which is the language itself. And so, because it's written in a completely different writing system that we're not fully up on in terms of our technology, in terms of like Facebook, you know, we can't just type out well orientated and aesthetically pleasing sentences in hieroglyphic writing or Sesh Medu Neter writing. And so when so transliterations become necessary because you're not going to sit there and draw and type out all these glyphs every time you want to mention something about ancient Egypt and so on and so forth. So people are going to use transliterations in their text. We use it all the time on, like, for example, Jolanda just said Dua'u Seba, and she's using a transliteration, a manual decoders transliteration system at that. But this is what we do. This is what everybody does. It's not really a question to ask. You know, it's made to look like it's a serious question to be asked, but it's not. And so you have that, and then you have the actual representations of sounds, which is notated in what's called the International Phonetic Alphabet, or IPA. And so that gives more resolution or more details into the actual pronunciation that represent phones. Okay. Transliterations represent script, and IPA represents sounds. That's the difference. And so I want people to understand. So when you do that homework, you'll get it. You'll see know that phones. If you look in a dictionary right now, you look up any word in dictionary in Merriam-Webster or any major dictionary. Look up a word. Just flip it to any page. Look at the entry. It will tell you the word. Then it will give you the IPA pronunciation. Even the online version, you can switch from the low resolution IPA to the high resolution IPA, where it'll break it into syllables and it'll tell you how to pronounce it. You click on IPA, it will tell you the detailed pronunciations of how words are pronounced. All right, so I want everybody to understand that. But that's pretty much all I have.
Alrighty.
Yeah.
To Omar Reed, it says, Asar, how close to Medu Neter is Mandarin or Cantonese? It's not close at all. And Medu Neter is a writing script. I assume you mean the language, but regardless if you're referring to the language or the writing script, it's not related at all. And that's just an easy question to answer. But I don't see any more questions.
All right.
So,
yep.
We'll end it here because now we're going on 3 hours, which is an hour past what I like to have as a video. But I want to thank you all for hanging out with us and for your questions and comments in the chat. And thank you for sticking through the technical difficulties. We'll be back again next week on Friday at 10 p.m. So we'll conclude this particular series. And please, again, purchase the contribution to the debate of the meaning of the place name Kemet. And we want to have a, I don't know if it'll be on my channel or Brother Wudjau's channel, but we want to have a question and answer specifically for those who have purchased the book and have read, at least half of it, and they have questions. So, we like to open up the panel, and invite them on the show. If they don't want to, they just want to stick in the chat, then that's fine as well. So, but so we can discuss, because there's a lot in the text, even though page wise it's a fairly thin book, at least in comparison to what we're used to writing, but it's packed full of information, and so you'll get a greater sense of the kinds of things that we're talking about here, in more detail. So there's a little bit in certain areas, some technical stuff, and so if you have any questions on that, or how to interpret a particular correspondence set, whatever the case may be, we want to have that. So we want to give y'all some time to actually go through it and purchase it. So we'll announce that in due time, but get yourself a copy of the text, and right now you can get it at Amazon.com. I don't even know why I haven't even put it on my site yet, but right now you can get it at Amazon.com, and we look forward to your feedback, and we appreciate the support that y'all have given us so far, and we will continue to advance the work. And so if you have any last remarks.
Just that I appreciate the opportunity, to come on your channel to actually go over this. And I just, my goal is to just make sure everybody understands and follows. And so I encourage the questions. We don't block, or I don't have any intention on blocking anybody except for extreme cases where things get disruptive or disrespectful and things like that. But I encourage the questions. But even within that, the questions should have some kind of anchor to the conversation and not be off on something. And at the same time, also, the best questions are those questions that are well informed, and questions for clarity. Okay, so if you want to continue the conversation, obviously we have the Facebook group, and other than that, wait for next week, and definitely get the book, because everything we're saying, I mean, pretty much everything we're saying, it's almost like this book, what do you call it, prophetic, because everything that's been brought up after the book was done, the book already addressed, because as Asar said, he's been researching this for over 20 years, or about 20 years. So he's heard it all. It's almost like, parents, we hear all the excuses our children can make. So it's like you can anticipate things. So and I've been dealing with it for quite a while, not as long as Asar. But certain things that we just see repeated. And so we just address it, and it just comes up. All right. But that was it. I appreciate it. And Asar Imhotep to everyone. And if you have any questions, like I said, join the Facebook group. We will continue the conversation.
All righty. With that said, peace, love, and hair grease, and we'll see y'all next week. All right, peace.